Good evening, truth tellers. Welcome, bringing the funk, folks. I'm Torre, and this is Truth Talks. And we're about to get into some deep arguments tonight about some real things. We're talking about snitching, the culture of listening to the streets versus rejecting the police. We'll talk about them guys who escaped in New Orleans and whether or not they should have been on social media while they were on the run. And should we be rooting for them? Let's go. Truth Talk starts right now.
Are y'all ready to roll? Let's go.
Welcome to Truth Talks, where four totally different people somehow come together to argue about what's going on in the culture. It's like friends meeting for a drink, but they all look at the world totally differently. Today, we're going to talk about Diddy, snitching, prison breaks, and more. Please welcome the superstar, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant.
What's up, Truth Tellers? What's up, Dog Squad? Y'all know how we do. We're going to cover a lot of subjects. We're going to bring a lot of smoke. I'm going to disagree with everybody except Miss Ariva. But hold on. And I'm going to shut Torre's ass down every single time. But anyways, Torre, you can carry on.
We also have our special co-host this week, legal legend and media powerhouse, Ariva Martin, who went from Harvard Law to running her own law firm to being the president of the Special Needs Network. We're proud to have you on the show today.
All right. I'm so excited to be here. And Dr. Bryant, bring the heat. I can handle it.
Today, we're talking about snitching. And speaking of no snitching, whatever you do, don't tell the police he's here. Dimitri Wiley.
Don't tell him. Please don't let him know. I am on the run, warrants, everything. Don't let him know. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ariva, just looking at Dimitri, do you have any legal advice for him?
Whatever you're doing, Dimitri, keep doing it, brother, because it is looking good and it is sounding better.
No,
Thank you, Miss Martin.
All right, let's move into trending truths. This is brought to you by our friends at Hair Maniacs. Our first story, Diddy is still the biggest news story out there. Recently, the judge angrily told him to stop looking at the jury and making faces at them. He threatened to throw Diddy out of court. You're not supposed to sit there and make faces trying to sway the jury, but Diddy thinks he is the most charismatic guy and he can charm them and slide out of this. He used to say, "I'm going to make you love me." And it represented his attempt, his desire to try to seduce people and desire that I can just make people fall in love with me. If he's trying to influence the jury, it's because he thinks he can. So I think he's going to want to get up on the stand and testify at some point because he thinks he can influence those folks. Ariva, what do you think about Diddy trying to charm the jury and influence the jury from the defendant's seat?
Well, first of all, let me say to Ray, hell no. He's not getting up and taking the witness stand. That is not happening. Anybody sitting around waiting for that, get over it. He would be annihilated on the witness stand. The cross-examination would be the most brutal cross-examination we have ever witnessed in the history of legal cases. And so much for this seduction. We haven't seen a whole lot of seduction going on. What we've heard a lot about is torture, is violence, is sadistic, is horrific. And I think what he's trying to do is intimidate the jurors, not seduce them, but send a subtle message that if you dare convict me of these charges, you may face what you've heard a lot of from these witnesses who have been absolutely positively tortured from his violence. Kudos, shout out to the judge that had the courage to stand up to him and to let his legal team know he will be watching this trial from behind bars if he doesn't cut it out. So I hope the jurors heard the judge loud and clear. Well, they weren't in the courtroom when the judge gave the admonition to the team, but the message is loud and clear. Cut it out, Diddy.
Dimitri, I understand, though, like the entertainer Diddy thinking I can entertain and win over this one last audience and save myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing about it is Diddy's been famous for being Diddy for so long that it's all he knows. Like you watch a dog in their natural habitat. If my growl or my bark has gotten me away with so much for so long, it's automatically what I'm going to resort to regardless of the room I'm sitting in. And that's exactly what's going on. Did he think since I've given people the stare or the glare or whatever it is, I can give it to anybody and it'll manipulate any situation. And that's not the case.
Dr. B, we know he's got to be going through trauma and all sorts of things, but all we hear about is him in the courtroom, smiling at everybody, happy, mouthing, "I know you, how are you," to people in the courtroom who he recognizes. And I can see him winking and smiling at the jury and trying to be like, "Hey, I'm actually a good guy."
Yeah, to Ariva's point, he's definitely trying an intimidation factor. He's trying to make sure that he implements fear into these people. He understands that these are everyday, normal folks who are on the jury, and he's believing that he can have this big time mogul intimidation on them. But this is the thing. Y'all have to remember, a narcissist is a narcissist no matter where they are. So you think that this guy gets in a courtroom and he's under intense charges like this, and all of a sudden the narcissism is going to become humbled, and he's no longer going to believe that, look, I can make this entire courtroom revolve around everything I want it to revolve around, meaning if I do give this person a look, they are going to be pooping in their pants. Come on now, this is epitome of narcissistic behavior. It doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter who's in the room. They are going to try to use everything they can to make sure that room does what? Revolve around them. And for him, that means the jury is on his side. And I agree with Ariva. Kudos to that judge who said, listen, you may be a big dog in them streets, but you in my courtroom today. And so in my courtroom today, we will not have that or tolerate that, because I have a jury here who was here to bring justice. And that right there is going to manipulate and infect the justice that they're going to be able to bring based on some fear factor that you're trying to project onto these people.
Ariva, you would not let Diddy testify if he was your client in a normal situation. But we have a situation where you have a client who is paying you a lot of money. He thinks he's in charge. He's going to say, I heard your advice. I'm going to do what I want to do. You can't, as his attorney, you can't like lay down in front of the tracks and prevent him. If he says, I want to get on the stand, there's nothing you can do as his defense. So what do you do from that stand? Because I think he might get on the stand because this guy is going to say, I can charm those people and I'm going to fight to the end. I'm not going to go down without a fight.
Teray, you CYA, you cover your own ass, because when it goes south, and trust me, it's going south, he is going to then claim ineffective counsel. He's going to want to sue you for malpractice, and he's going to try to shift the blame onto his legal team. But no, you read him the riot act. You let him look at some of the testimony that has been given by these witnesses. You tell him all of the pitfalls that are going to happen. Maybe you bring in a Dr. Bryant or someone to help him understand that it's his narcissism, not his knowledge of court procedures or court cases, that is talking to him. And then if he continues to insist, you put him on the witness stand and you sit there and you watch the meltdown, you watch the takedown, and you watch what I believe would ultimately seal the deal for any conviction.
I mean,
hold on, Teray, because Ariva said something that was, Ariva, I'm going to steal it and I'll quote you. You said, it's your narcissist, not your knowledge. Ariva, you spitting gems. No, I love that, because it's that. It's no. It's your ego. It's your narcissist, not your knowledge. That was good, sis. I had to give you that moment.
No, that was a bar.
Oh, thank you. I just learned about his narcissism listening to you.
For sure. Look, Diddy's in jail at least until the end of this trial. Let's move on to our second story. Some guys who've been in prison for a long time and said, no mas, about 10 guys escaped from a New Orleans prison last month. Roll the clip.
The Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office says the prisoners removed a toilet in this cell and cut a hole in the thin wall they could crawl through. The inmates scrawled obscene messages for the guards. One was misspelled too easy. Sheriff Susan Hudson.
They were still able to exit the jail about 1:01 a.m. After breaching a wall behind a toilet in the jail. They were seen exiting a door on the docks where we normally bring in supplies, scaling a wall and running across the interstate shortly thereafter.
The jailbreak wasn't detected until guards did a morning head count 7 hours after the escape. 9 total hours passed before the sheriff alerted the public.
You got to go inside the facility to be able to see. They could have been anywhere. Then we had to first prioritize talking to victims to make sure they were safe.
One inmate was captured hiding under a car in a hotel garage in the French Quarter. Among those on the loose are 3 accused of murder. Derek Groves was convicted in a 2018 Mardi Gras shooting. Police believe the escapees are armed and dangerous.
There's 13 people charged with aiding in their escape, including one of the grandmothers of one of the inmates. Dimitri, God forbid you were doing a bid. Do you think your grandmother would help you if you were to escape?
I'm gonna be honest. I love my grandma to death. She's my heart. Knowing my grandma, I'm going back to jail. My grandma gonna make me listen. I'm going right back. She's driving me straight back. And she ain't even gonna tell me. She gonna pray for me on the way back. I know my grandma. But if your grandma is the only getaway driver you could come up with, y'all got bigger problems than all of that other stuff. Right? You got bigger problems.
One of the inmates while on the run got on social media. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
So I'm asking please for help. Young boy, Meat Mills, people, LBL, you know what I'm saying? People that been through the system that know it's corrupt. Lil Wayne, Donald Trump, please, I'm asking for help.
Reba, he's using the internet to plead his case. And of course, you'd like to see him do that through a lawyer. But if he feels like he doesn't have access to one or he doesn't understand and have faith in the legal system, this is a way of him speaking to the people about, like, I am being wronged.
Well, the problem is ignorance of the law is no defense. So his ignorance of the law is not going to save him. And he's facing some very serious charges. Look, what he's talking about is the inequities in our criminal justice system. He's calling on folks like Lil Wayne, even Donald Trump, saying, help a brother out. But we know that Black men in our criminal justice system do face disproportionate consequences when it comes to sentencing, when it comes to pretty much everything related to the criminal justice system. This is not Shawshank Redemption. This ain't a white boy tunneling his way, escaping prison like in the movie. These are some Black folks, and they are going to face some very, very harsh consequences. We're already seeing that, Teray, with the bail amounts that have been set for the 13 folks involved. Outrageous amounts of money, the kind of bail that you would see for murderers, not for folks who are accused of accomplishing or being an accomplice to someone who's broken out of prison. And what we know is when Black folks are involved, everything about jail reform, everything about bail reform goes out the window. This is just a tragic case all the way around.
Dr. B, when I look at that internet video, I see a brother crying for help.
From the looks of it, all them brothers was crying for help, and they cut a square out in the bathroom and created their own damn help. To be honest with you, even though it's wrong, they did the crime, they're supposed to be in there serving their time. I'm going to be honest, there was something very liberating for some reason about these brothers getting out and being free. And again, I'm not condoning crime. I'm not condoning that. Right. I feel like this is the employment at this institution's problem. Now, these brothers are in jail. They want their freedom. How are they able to escape, make that much noise, be on video, be on camera, for however long it took for them to cut this hole and escape without anybody saying, oh, wait a minute, we got some inmates that are now have escaped. To me, that is not an inmate problem. I'm going to say this, a criminal is going to be a criminal. Meaning, if you put me behind bars for committing a crime, something such as murder, you think my Black ass is not going to drill a hole anywhere to get him out here? To think that I'm just going to get caught to come back and just do more of what I was already doing, which is time? Absolutely not. Yeah.
Well, let me just say this, Teray. Look at what these criminals have done. They now have involved their family members, even grandma, the grandma that would send Dimitri back to jail. They are now facing very serious charges. I totally disagree with the bail amounts that have been set for them. But one thing about a criminal being a criminal, Dr. Brian, is they will get everybody around them in trouble. So here's some poor grandmother that's got to hire a lawyer facing felony charges in Louisiana. So she could be spending 20, 30 years herself in jail just trying to help her, what I'm going to call her sorry ass grandson.
No, that's a great point. Ariba, is it the inmate's responsibility to stay in the prison, or is it not the state's responsibility to hold him or her?
Oh, clearly the state failed. Clearly employees of this prison failed. And there are going to be heads that roll. I'm sure there are going to be lots of folks that get fired, lots of folks who are investigated. Of course, it's the responsibility of the prison to keep people incarcerated. But these criminals Some convicted of murder, very serious charges, out on the streets are a danger to that community. And again, I go back to involving their family members. If somebody knocks on your door and they've escaped from prison, don't answer the door. They're going back to prison. They're going to catch them. And now you are facing felony charges. You can't help them. That ship has sailed. They have been convicted. They've been incarcerated. The escape doesn't work. We have not seen any single solitary case of someone escaping prison and does so successfully. They get caught, they go back, they face more charges, or they get shot and killed by law enforcement, and then you're standing there with a case. So use your head.
That is amazing free advice. We feel, and we're going to get into this more when we get into snitching, we feel like anti-police, and we're going to help them because of our relationship to them is we're rooting for everybody Black and anti the system and the man. But like Dimitri's grandmother is risking her freedom by helping him escape, even for 1 second.
Not mine.
So, you know, it's not fair to our family members to pull them into the system when they didn't do anything wrong. They're just trying to help us out of love for us. Moving on to our political segment. Oh, I love this story so much. Trump and Elon's feud on social media. We all saw it coming. The girls are fighting. It's the breakup of the year. The bromance is over, and the cat fight is glorious. Roll the clip, please.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it. But we have it with others, too. They leave, and they wake up in the morning, and the glamour's gone. The whole world is different, and they become hostile.
Quick recap. Trump was putting together his big, beautiful bill when Elon got mad and got on Twitter and started attacking the bill, and then started attacking Trump himself, saying, hey, guys, he's on the Jeffrey Epstein list. Trump chirped back on Truth Social, he's a drug addict. So they're two wealthy, powerful guys dissing each other on social like schoolboys. And now these two evil people are splitting apart. I notice, Dr. B, that Trump is far less nasty in this battle, that he's usually the punch 10 times harder sort of guy, and like to say the meanest thing and to do the meanest weird, like I would have expected him to try to deport Elon by now or something like that, or open a DOJ case against him. But like he's mad at him, but he's handling it in a very light sort of way.
Yeah, well, this is my thing. You know, there's some people who believe this rhetoric and they're having this, you know, this brotherly fight of they really dislike each other. I also think that these two dudes could be role playing. This could be a part of their plan. This is what they do. You know, let me explain what there's a difference between politicians and elected officials. Elected officials there to be of service to the people. A politician does politics, which means you have folks like Elon that come in, and you have people like Trump who are going to set up policies and set up legislation and set up plans and set up contracts so that his buddy Elon can win, like Doge and other things. That's called pay to play. That's politicking. And then once he gets what he wants, Elon Musk gets what he wants, then guess what? He exits. There has to be an exit strategy. He can't just say, well, by the way, I got my Doge contract. I got my billions and my millions. And so guess what? I'm going to just walk away from here peacefully, because that gives away the fact that Trump was there just to make sure that this guy got the money and the power that he wanted, which was really more money. So I believe they can be setting up this role play of we're having this problem. Elon is just throwing out narratives that we already know about Trump. Oh, he's on the Einstein list. Okay, we already know that Trump got in office because Elon really pushed that through and really was big when it came to paying people to vote and register to vote for Trump. He already put out a big campaign.
Ariva, Trump is definitely not on the Einstein list, but Elon teased that he should start a new party for what he called the 80% of the country in the middle, which is kind of a really interesting idea. And it lets you know some people will understand the idea that there is a power in speaking to the middle and the moderates rather than the diehards on the left or the right. Do you think we need a third party?
We don't need anything from Elon Musk, but for him to go somewhere, sit down, shut up, and hopefully never, ever be seen or heard from again. And let's be clear, Tyrant, let's do a little fact checking here. That 80% number that's referenced, that's not 80% of the country. That's some bogus poll done on X by Elon Musk. And remember, X, formerly Twitter, without any fact checking controls, without any fact checking for those white supremacists that dominate that platform. Now, that's 80% of folks that responded on his X poll. So that is not 80% of America. I'm sure I didn't answer that poll. I don't think anyone on the show did. No, we don't need Elon Musk talking about starting a new policy. He knows party that is. He doesn't know anything about politics. He's wrecked the government. He's been the force behind the layoff of thousands of workers for the federal government, mostly Black folks, mostly Black women. So I don't think we should be taking any kind of advice from Elon Musk, and definitely not political advice.
Dimitri, she's totally right to be that I don't want Elon as part of I don't want to be part of a third party that Elon is part of. But are you interested in the option of a third party that represents more of the middle rather than the MAGA right and the progressive left?
You know, the thing about it is, I honestly feel like to some degree, I'd be open to it, just some degree, because it doesn't force you to have to pick a left or a right or jump completely this way or completely that way. But the thing about it is, if you really pay attention to it, the middle has always been the deciding factor. It's how far I can sway that middle party. So the thing about it is, it may actually help to put a third party on the table. But again, like Ms. Martin said, if anything here is Elon Musk's idea, I'm solely against whatever he is doing. So yeah.
No, I'm definitely against any idea that Elon is about. I wonder if a third party that is located on the middle, the moderate, can possibly get the sort of excitement and energy that a party that is representing a very progressive or a very conservative idea. As when you go more to the edge of the political spectrum, you have people who are more passionate about those ideas. So they are more likely to vote, more likely to come out, more likely to donate. In the middle, Ariba, I don't know that you can find the same level of passion to compete with people who are supporting the edges of the spectrum.
Toure, it's a false choice. Where are all these people that are in the middle? People have already picked a side. So this whole notion that there's 80 million people or 100 million people or even 10 people in the middle is false. You and I, everybody on the show, all of our audience, people know what they believe in. You believe in good government. You believe in democracy. You believe in creating opportunities for people to rise up from their circumstances. You believe in fairness and equity, transparency, all of those things. And if you believe in those things, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or this so-called third party. So who are the people who are going to start this third party and not become skilled career politicians, the same people that you hate now in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party? They are going to be the same people leading this so-called third party. So I say, get over yourselves, people. Pick a side. Either you're with us and want to save this democracy as Democrats, or you want to take this country back to the 1950s as the MAGA Republicans. That's it. That's the part.
A lot of people are making just that choice. Some Black people are saying, hey, let's go back to the 1950s. I find for Black people, it's hard to have a real political choice, Cheyenne, because it's like the Democratic Party, the Republican Party is overtly racist. So then we may be critical of the Democratic Party, but we're like, well, we can't vote the same way as the Klan.
Yeah. Torre, so Elon's asking for an independent party that he's saying doesn't exist. It already exists, idiot. Okay, the independent party is the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. What are we talking about?
But these are not viable parties. He wants to have a viable party.
Well, from what I read, he was saying he used the word we need to have an independent party. Maybe he used the wrong word because he's not educated on or versed on what he's talking about, which wouldn't be the first time we hear Elon be non-versed and uneducated about what he's talking about. But what I am saying is that I'm a Democratic, but what I do like about the independent party is they don't vote per party. They vote per policy, per legislation, per idea, per what works for them in their community. That is what does separate the independent party from having to choose either Dem or Republican to say, hey, because I'm a Dem, I'm going to vote this way. There's oftentimes that people do that. I know me as a Dem and being a Democratic, California Democratic delegate for so many years, there have been some other policies that weren't within our party that I felt like, damn, I would vote for that. But guess what? I'm blue. I'm a Dem. I do believe the independent party keeps people independent from voting just from party. And I think that causes an issue when you got folks who believe, because they don't have all of the political education to know, listen, you can be registered as any party and you can vote for any policy, any legislation. You're not tied to that party. I think that's education that we need to give, which is called voters education, to people to say, listen, no matter who you register with, you have the right to vote for what works for you, your family, your community. That is one thing I can say the independent party does represent. Does a policy work for you? Or are you just voting because you're blue, or because you're red, you're Republican, which doesn't make for a good vote?
Hey guys, chime in the chat and let us know how you feel. Do you want to see a new third party? Do you? I imagine you probably don't want to see it run by Elon Musk, but if there was a viable third party option, would you like that? Okay, let's move on to our main topic, which should be kind of spicy since that we have a California super lawyer here. And our main topic, we're going to dive into a very deep and important idea, snitching in the Black community. To some people, that means if we committed a crime together and I tell on you, I have snitched on you. Okay, I think everybody would agree with that. But to some people, it means you don't speak to the police about anything ever, period. Even if you have a serial killer living next door to you, you don't ever talk to the police. I'm not sure if that is snitching, but to a lot of people, that is considered snitching. Even if you're not in the life, you should be respecting the underworld code. When Kid Cudi testified against Diddy under subpoena, so he was forced, was that snitching? Young Thug tweeted that it was. Dimitri, I'm not sure that Thug is understanding this whole game right.
You know, Thug is part of that younger generation in which I can speak for. I think snitches get stitches used to refer to one thing as, like you said, if I'm part of the collateral damage, it's okay for me to voice that you wronged me or that you wronged, the general public. But nowadays, in this new form generation, they see it as if you say anything at all, you're snitching. See, the thing about it is it's real culturally confusing, because when it's us, we advocate for justice, 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 and then we whisper, don't snitch in the background. Me personally, I've never understood it. I've never got it, because when you look into, like, say, for example, the actual hoods of Chicago, everyone screamed, don't snitch, until it's somebody in your family that got killed. And now you put it on Facebook and you want everybody to advocate for, please turn them in, I need justice for my son. You were the same person whispering, don't snitch to the community before. So I'm gonna need you to keep that same narrative. It's become a different definition over time. I've watched it change. How do you see it, Ms. Martin?
I'm nodding my head, Dimitri. I want to give you a big hug, because you are so right. The hypocrisy is nauseating. So it's okay not to snitch until it hits home, right? And then when your loved one, your daughter, your son, your mother, your grandmother is hit in a drive-by shooting, or, is collateral damage to some gang violence, then you want the whole community to stand up, to march, to protest, to, give as many contacts or information to the police as possible. And look, we can't have it both ways. We want to break the code of silence that exists within rogue police departments. We want cops to tell on other cops. So if we want cops to do their job and to tell when other cops are using excessive force towards people, primarily people of color, then people of color, we have to be willing to stand up to those people. And it's usually just a few people in our community that are wreaking havoc on the whole community. We can't let the thugs brainwash us. We can't let the criminals brainwash us into thinking that somehow we're doing something wrong when we are standing up for the innocent people, the everyday working people in our community. And by and large, and this is just such a myth we have to break down, Black communities embrace policing. We just want constitutional policing. We want policing that honors our community, that respects our lives, and that works with us rather than against us. So this notion that somehow Black folks don't want police in our community, that's just not accurate. That's disinformation, and it's harmful to our community. So yeah, people, if you are in a community that is plagued by crime, stand up and do something. Take control of your own community and protect those people, your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents in these communities, because they are counting on us to be there and to stand up for them when others we know outside of our communities won't do it.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think there's a difference between snitching and doing what's right. I think that there is to me, the street definition of snitching is I'm involved in a crime. I'm an accessory to it. We all get caught, and I'm going to snitch on everybody so I can do less time, knowing that I was an accessory to that crime. That's snitching. Being in a community overseer is what I call it. Someone who is there for their community, wants the best for their community, and relays information to a police officer so that they can keep public safety within their neighborhood is someone who's doing what's right. That is not a snitch. That is called a community leader. I always say a community leader does not have to have a title. They do not have to be a doctor. They do not have to be a president of an organization like I am of NAACP. If you are in the community and you are even doing just one thing in your community that adds to the betterment of that, you are a community leader. So I want to thank you. But what I do want to add to is what Reva said. You're absolutely right, sis. I like my community to be policed. When I dial 911, I want them to be at my house as fast as they can get here. Okay, I've had to call the police in the past, and I do have a registered pistol in my home, and they were very helpful because I'm not the criminal. I want the police to show up. Now, of course, if I was the criminal, I probably want them to stay far the hell away. But that is to your point of the citizens in the Black community who are rightfully paying taxes, if they're not paying taxes and they're just at-home mama bears, but they are doing the right thing. We want policing presence, we want police help, and we want, more importantly, community policing. We don't want you to come in and take over. We don't want you to come in and enforce the law in a way where we are then put in a place of discrimination, but we do want community policing where we know you as an officer, we trust you as an officer, and we feel like you are a part of our community. That's important for us as Black people.
The thing about it is, from where I grew up, it was always this code that silence is some sort of strength. But the thing about it is, when it protects the very violence that we claim to fight, I think we are losing the plot. And the thing about it is, it's always been a narrative of the dope boys standing on a corner, and they're enforcing this on the younger generation and the kids. So we grow up believing the exact same things. But again, it's the hypocrisy I've never actually bowed into it. I do agree what you said earlier, Ms. Bryant, to the idea that when I'm part of the actual crime, I should keep my mouth shut because I shouldn't snitch on the people I went into crime with. But if I ain't got nothing to do with none of this, all y'all going down. That's just me. Everybody going down. But that's just me.
The thing to me, and thank you for holding it down while I was having computer problems.
You were fixing your curls. We're gonna keep it real. You took a break to fix those curls. Mm-hmm.
The undercurrent of all this is a deep and righteous distrust of the police in our communities, and a sense that Pookie and Ray Ray might be selling rocks on the block, but I know them, and I know their grandmother, and I know who they are and what they're going to do. I don't know what that officer who I've never seen before is going to do and who they're going to beat up and how they're going to treat us in this community. And they feel like an oppressive force in this community. And to the notion of helping them seems anathema, even though I'm like, hey, we do deserve a crime-free community, but I'm not helping the pigs. Under no circumstance am I helping the 12. So I'm caught between, I feel safer, especially in New York City, I feel safer around the criminals of New York than NYPD. I'm definitely not helping them. So I'm sort of trapped. Reva, as a community member, I don't know how.
I was going to say, you're hitting on some really, really important points. Look, this whole notion of, cooperating with the police, being an informant, it even goes back to slavery days, because we know during slavery, Black folks who were enslaved were incentivized to tell on other enslaved people. So if you were that enslaved person that told on the other enslaved people, maybe who were trying to escape, then you would get some kind of perk. So we've seen white folks use Black people in ways to be disruptive and to be harmful to our community. That's real. And just what you just talked about, Teray, in terms of the police and how sometimes calling the police can end up in more harm to a community than good. All of those are really important points. But you also said Pookie and Ray Ray. Let's be real. Pookie and Ray Ray are also wreaking havoc on our community. They're standing on that corner. Oftentimes they're pushing drugs to young people. They're pushing drugs to students. Oftentimes they are enlisting young people into gangs, into a life of crime. So let's not act like what they're doing is somehow righteous or good for the community. So this is a really complex issue. I don't think there are any right or wrong answers. We obviously want to protect our community. We want to make sure our community is safe. But at the same time, we also want to rid our community of any cancer, of any violent criminals, whether they are Black, brown, green, or white, because at the end of the day, we all deserve to be protected. So let's talk about how we can put more resources into those communities so that Pookie and Ray Ray can come off those corners, get into some kind of job training program, school, whatever, so that we are not perpetuating those cycles of crime.
I don't want to have that conversation and just assume that Pookie and Ray Ray are the only criminals in the conversation. Because the pigs in blue are also criminals in this conversation.
Toray, I was just about to say that, Toray. I was just about to say that. A couple of things. You said there's a group of folks in our community that feel like, look, I don't want to tail on Pookie and Ray Ray because I don't want to give the pigs any information. I don't even like these pigs, me and the police officers, right? I don't even trust law enforcement. Whose fault is that? That's law enforcement's fault. You don't community police us. We don't know you. We don't trust you. When you're talking about a police brutality on a community where people are seeing it in their community, then we're seeing it on television, which is secondary trauma. You want us to trust you. You want us to tell you stuff. You want us to give you information. And then after we tell you something, you go back and tell the exact people that we told on that we're the ones that told. So there can be even more Black on Black crime. We can't trust you. And second, I was going to say is let's not act like Pookie, Ray Ray, Dante, Kiki, whoever else you want to call them or name them are the only criminals. You have a lot of law enforcement who are being paid to play. Look at the Diddy case. You got a lot of law enforcement that are turning the cheek when they're seeing drugs being sold in our community, when they're seeing somebody being shot, when they see gang millers in our community.
It's not some who's turning away. It's ACAB. All of them.
But there's the thing, Toray, hold on. Guess what? They're in pay to enforce the law. We are not. We are paying for them to do their job. And so when you put that job on us as a community to say, well, you guys should be there policing your community. Well, hold on. If I'm an at-home mother, I'm doing my job. If I'm a teacher, I'm going to my place of employment to educate my students. If I'm a person who travels or an attorney or doctor, I'm doing that. You get what I'm saying? So my point is,
I think we're having two different conversations. I'm sorry, I think we're having two different conversations here. I think we are all in total agreement that there are rogue police officers that need to be removed from police departments. There are some police departments that I believe need to be.
No, ma'am. Let me stop you, ma'am. You said there are some rogue police officers. It's ACAB. There is a system of policing that places.
I was saying that the whole thing the U.S. needs to be dismantled. The whole policing structure is flawed from the core.
Bylaws. Their whole bylaws.
Whole policing structure that is flawed from the core that needs to be torn down and rethought, restructured, reimagined. So I'm not suggesting that police are the good guys in this scenario, but we're talking about crime, crime in Black neighborhoods, crime in any neighborhoods, not just crime in Black neighborhoods, but we were talking about snitching and what is the definition and how do we deal with crime in our community when we know about it? Are we as citizens, do we have a responsibility to come forward and help police? And the first to say, very complicated, very complex. It ain't an easy yes or no answer to this because some police know you wouldn't want to call them to help you get your dog out of a tree or a cat out of a tree because you can't trust them.
And they got to create a safe space for us to go, Demetria. I'm going to let me go. You got to create a safe space for us to do that. Their job is to police us, to create a safe space, and to make sure that they are a part of our community. I'm not going to feel safe, Ariva, to tell an officer something who I know doesn't even respect me in my own community. I said this in our other episode. If you don't have culture competence of the people you serving, keep your ass out of that service position because we deserve to be respected. And maybe then we will have a relationship and not just a transactional relationship with you where we can trust that we are safe when we are telling you things that can help our community.
You know, in all actuality, as I'm hearing it, And I'm thinking back to my childhood and the way I grew up and everything like that. This is less about the police than we're making it. This is a quote that an agenda we push in our own neighborhoods. The thing about it is that Pookie, that Ray Way, all of those people we discussed, I grew up with a ton of those. I graduated grammar school with them. They was over my house. We became family, XYZ. I know those boys standing on that corner. Regardless or not, I see the problems with them. It's almost like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Which one am I going to live with? And the truth is, we choose to live with what we know. In living with what we know, we just not going to turn them in and send them to jail. That's the reality of the conversation. The conversation is, I'm comfortable here. And the thing about it is, as long as I'm comfortable, I ain't opening my mouth to help people I'm comfortable with. It's not happening. And that's the agenda in the neighborhood.
Hold on. There's another aspect. There's another aspect of all this that I want to add in also, because there is a tremendous amount of snitching actually happening in this world, especially from folks who are telling us to not snitch. There's another aspect, the confidential informant who is sharing information about criminal activities with law enforcement all the time, quite often for money, quite often to stay out of prison themselves. They are talking with a benefit. They are quite often immunized. Some of these deals are just like backyard deals between one CI and one cop. Look at this little video.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Then this guy would be calling us. Who? Detective Smith? Detective Smith? He don't know you here. But I'm trying to tell you, I'm working with y'all, bro. All right, look. Are you working right this second? Right now! I work for you guys for the rest of my life. What are you talking about, bro? Just relax, guy. Look. All right, I know who he is. Dead. All right. I'm being dead. I'm telling you right now. And I'm telling you right now, I've been talking to him all right now. I'm telling you right now, I got to give him 10 guns on Thursday, man. I don't know anything about that. Look, this. I talk to him all day long. I don't have my glasses, guys.
Areva, this is a really complicated area of the law. This man lives in the community and he is paid by police to talk about what he sees and knows. And, those guys have guns. Those guys are dealing drugs. And he's hanging in the community like, hey, I'm one of you guys. And he is the cops living amongst us.
Wow. In some ways, he's worse than some of the other people that we've been talking about during this conversation, because he is exactly that person that is snitching, perhaps because he's been involved in criminal activity himself. And now he's getting a pass because he is snitching on folks who may have been involved in criminal activity with him. That person is the ultimate person that betrays the trust. So they embed themselves in the community. They get the trust of the folks in the community. And all along, they are collecting information on you, spying on you, and then passing it on to police. I like the person who calls the police and says, I live on the corner. I just watched a drive-by shooting, and I am here to report this shooting. I like that person. That's the community leader person that Dr. B is talking about. I don't think she's talking about this guy that's getting paid and embedding themselves in the community and betraying the very people that are trusting that person, making them a friend, making them a neighbor. I don't know. I got problems with that.
Well, Doc, Areva's absolutely right. If you see a drive-by, you probably should call the police. But a lot of these calls are like, I see a suspicious person, and that person isn't necessarily doing anything. And yet somebody is dropping a dime on them, and now they have a problem when they weren't even doing anything.
Hooray. This is really pissing me off. And I'm mad that y'all keep making me the angry Black woman on True Talks, okay? This is pissing me off. Let me tell you why. Because you're telling people what they should do in their hood, in their inner city, in an area where the crime rate is at an all-time high. That is no type of understanding, culture competence, community competence for these people. It's easier, stop. It's easier to tell somebody from the outside looking in, go and snitch on a drive-by, go and snitch on Pookie and Ray Ray, and go back in that neighborhood and live there when your life is at risk. We also have to look at these people and understand these people, we're not talking about the guy in the video, these people have to live in the area that they're also snitching in. So sometimes they have to know when to hold and know when to fold. Sometimes, to Areva's point, if you're the old lady who lives on the corner, who we all know you always call the police, she's safe. Usually they don't deal with kids and older women or, old folks. They leave her alone. But if you're this 25-year-old dude who's just trying to go back and forth to school and college and make a living and make it out the hood, then maybe you should keep your mouth shut, because that may put your life at a higher risk. We have to be very sensitive to a living condition of people who we are telling them to do something that could really be detrimental to them and not contribute to the community.
Dimitri.
Tori, it's two things to note in this case. I want people to pay very close attention to how they don't want to believe this man. Like, please look at this. He say, I ain't got my glasses, I can't XYZ. He may just be telling the truth, right? Let's just say he is telling the truth and he in the culture and he's the snitch of the culture. Okay, I don't agree with it. That's first off, because first, you could have got your ass a job in law enforcement and been a goddamn undercover police officer, but that's not what the fuck you did. You'd rather sit where the people are, you claim to trust every day, help them commit a crime, and then get them put in jail. That's fucking ridiculous. But the most important thing is how they don't want to believe that man, because at the end of the day, you're still seen as a criminal, buddy. I don't know what you think you're doing, bucko. Second thing to note, please understand, this is social media. This is now global. So that thing you were hiding, your face, when you took that mask off, you just exposed yourself to your whole neighborhood. I'd be surprised from where I'm from if that man is still alive.
Ariva, there's also a whole other side of this too, because the police tell each other not to snitch. They have the blue wall of silence. They are not supposed to comment or critique each other publicly. Is that not the same thing as no snitching?
Look, Teray, I'm so happy for the invention of the cell phone and the cell phone camera, because that's disrupting all of this blue wall of silence. We have seen it in case after case after case. Some street corner journalists standing there with a cell phone that is recording the actions of police, oftentimes the abusive, the excessive force, the unconstitutional policing. We can think of case after case where police have been caught on camera, stories that would not have ever seen the light of day, police who would have never been prosecuted, but for those journalists taking those cell phone videos. We need to disrupt anything that remotely looks like the blue wall of silence. I'm in favor of police being prosecuted for failing to report on other police officers that are engaged in misconduct and they witness it. So if we want the police blue wall of silence to fall, and I think we all do, then I want to make our community safe, Dr. B, so that the person in the community feels like they can come forward and report some criminal activity and not have to suffer repercussions. And when we talk about the hood, look, I grew up North St. Louis in about as hood as I can get. So I consider myself a part of that community. I want my community to be safe. I want us to talk about how do we get to a point, because when we know better, we got to do better. And we know better right now. We know our communities deserve to be safe. So what are we doing to make them safe so that people can talk to the police if it's appropriate to do so? And if they choose not to do so, how do we then stop the crime in our community?
Dimitri, we want safe communities. We want safer communities. And I mean, in reality, I know New York, LA, and Chicago are safer, fewer homicides than you saw 20, 30 years ago. But quite often, the police are more agents of chaos and violence and real crime than some of the criminals. And in many ways, when we're talking about no snitching, we're talking about the war on drugs, right? And the war on drugs has been more damaging to Black communities than the drugs ever were and the drug dealers ever were. So we're talking about a fairly righteous and actually intelligent rebuke of the police in our communities in the whole no snitching thing.
No, absolutely. I think it starts, you gotta start young. You gotta get them while they're young. Please make sure they understand, and this is for all parents I'm speaking to, make sure you actually understand what it is in your child you want to instill. Because I remember when I was growing up, my parents just told me, what ain't your business, you mind yours. That's what she told me, in the idea that she wanted to keep me safe. She knew if I opened my mouth about some shit that ain't got nothing to do with me, I might not make it home. That was real important for my mother when we were children. But you got to make sure you establish what's important for your child. And I think that's where it all starts to change.
Doc, there's another angle of this, because the idea of no snitching has been about adults most of the time, but as a cultural thing, it sort of seeps down to even the way that we speak to children. And even you may have somebody say to a child, oh, no snitching, don't tell. And I think that's a really dangerous message. You know, it's one message for adults who understand what we're doing with mass incarceration and the war on drugs, but for children, that's really damaging and dangerous.
This is the thing. If it's my child, meaning not an adult, you come and you snitch, if you want to call it that. I call it talk to mama. And I will make the decision with you as to what we do with that information. I would never teach my child to ever go and tell an officer something unless under one circumstance their life was in danger or there was something they needed to help themselves. That's it. Because this is the thing. Crime has been going on since the beginning of time. We will be able to create more public safety. We'll be able to alleviate crime here and there, but it's going to continue to do what it does. That's just what life does. I'm not going to have my child, now we're not talking about adult, my child be subject to repercussions or consequences because they were doing something outside of what I would know. And just because they feel like this is what's right and this is what would help, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting their life at risk because at the end of the day, if my baby has an issue or goes to jail or gets shot or gets killed because of this, guess who has to deal with it? Oftentimes, it's not going to be the folks whose family they helped who's going to be helping me and my child. So I think there's a difference between snitching and doing what's right, Torre, but I would tell my kids, and I would even offer parents to tell your kids, you should be the point of contact for your child. You should be the point of contact and you help them figure out, navigate circumstantial, what makes sense for that particular circumstance. Because we know, and I'll end on this, that unfortunately, we can't even trust a lot of times law enforcement with our babies, with our kids. Our children have been harmed and have been shot and have been in crossfires with law enforcement many times. And it's not safe. It just really isn't.
No, you're absolutely right. I want to get you guys just a quick final answer as we wrap up. But the police brought this on themselves by the way that they have violently and oppressively policed our communities for decades. So the notion that we have a deep distrust of the police, that we would rather support the criminals than help the police clean up our communities, because we understand that the police themselves represent crime and fear in our communities. That is their fault. That is not our fault. I don't look at no snitching as some sort of character problem for Black people.
That is Teray, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
The police have been behaving in our communities for a very long time.
And I just want you to say whose fault it is so that everyone in the chat who's going crazy right now and our folks who watch us understand whose fault that is when we are not being policed right. We are not created a safe space. We can't tell, we can't call, because there's times folks have called in their community. Guess what, Teray? They end up in jail. They end up being the one that comes in, and now they're all of a sudden running their license, running their plate, when they're the ones that call because they're the victim to the crime. How did I end up in the back of the car when I'm calling for your help?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways that the police make our lives harder and that they prove to us over and over again that we cannot trust them. Ariva, I'm sure you've seen this in your work 100 times. We cannot trust the police. So, of course, we're going to have a communal response like no snitching. Dimitri, this has been going on in our communities for decades. This is an old thing. I'm sure that the no snitching ethos comes to you, passed down perhaps from your fathers or your uncle, your uncles or your father or people older than that. Like, this has been in our community for a long time because we feel like we know we've been getting mistreated by the police. This is a fairly obvious response to that.
Absolutely. But this is what I like to question for the people in the comments or for the people at home watching. If snitching is betrayal, what is turning a blind eye to murder? Like what is it? And the thing about it is right now, I want you to drop in the chat that time in 3rd grade when that little boy took your chocolate milk. I want you to, every time you kept the truth to yourself, I want you to drop it right here in the comments because it's gone too far. Please teach them kids. Please teach everybody that the actual justice can never be found if we're not out here advocating for it. So,
but I mean, again, we're when it's a drive-by or a murder, or a rape, like obviously we should get involved and help people. But quite often with this, we're talking about there's an ongoing operation down the street. If you mind your business, they'll mind their business and you won't have to interact with them. Or this person who's calling thinks maybe they saw something, but they're not sure. And now somebody who was doing nothing has a police problem, right? And we know when the police show up, it's 50-50 as a Black person, whether or not you're going to survive that interaction. So to me, the whole notion is let's have Black people have fewer interactions with the police, period. And I will take my chances being in proximity to criminals rather than being in proximity to the police.
Well, that's your personal opinion, Teray. There are lots of people who live in fear of criminals and police. So I don't think it is a choice. And most people, if they had a choice, they would say, I don't like either. I don't want to be in proximity to criminals, and I definitely don't want to be in proximity to cops that may shoot me, may abuse me, may violate my constitutional rights. What I want to be is safe in my communities. And what is going to allow me to be safe in my communities? And that means free of criminals, and it means free of police, the police departments that we have now in this country that were built on slave patrols, police that were built to, suppress Black voices and to oppress Black bodies. So I don't like the choices. I want a whole nother choice. We talked about an independent political party. I want a third choice. And I want that choice to be my safety, the safety of my family, and the safety of my community, not with criminals and not with police that are basically slave patrols.
We have for tonight, and that's a brilliant point. I want to leave it on that. I love that. Thank you so much for bringing it back to that, Ariva. Like, comment, subscribe on our YouTube channel at TruthTalks-Live. Continue to watch us simulcasting right here on the Black Star Network after Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support Black media at CashApp, at Truth Talks Live, or any of the links on your screen. Support us also by advertising with Truth Talks and reach our over 10 million viewing audience on all our social platforms. Dr. B, they can partner with you as an influencer by visiting TruthTalksLive.com and become a VIP member of the Truth Lounge and click on Doc Squad's room. Dr. B, what will they find in your VIP chat room?
They gonna find safe space, but they won't find no snitches. But what I will say is that y'all can come to my room and you can tell me all your stuff, and what goes on in the Doc Squad room stays in the Doc Squad room, because we won't be snitching on y'all in that room. So have it your way. Have it your way.
Black media is under attack. Keep supporting us by telling a friend to tell a friend to watch Truth Talks every night, 8 p.m. EST, 8 p.m. PST on the West Coast.
Listen, y'all, join us Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, here on Roland Martin and on our YouTube. But y'all, again, I'm only going to say it one more time. Well, maybe 5 more times, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe. And we want to hear your opinions, your thoughts in the chat. We don't care if you disagree with us. We want to hear y'all in the chat. Drop that lovers, drop that Doc Squad. Ariva, love you, girl. You were great this segment. See y'all next time.